let's talk about movements, because this past year has been quite remarkable. Starting in December of 2010, Tunisia, a young man named Mohamed Bouazizi comes out of university. There's no opportunity. He ends up selling fruit and vegetables in the marketplace, and as authorities harass him, steal his scale, he gets so frustrated he sets himself on fire, and that ignites the frustration of a generation, of an entire nation. And they rise up against their dictator, Ben Ali, and they throw him out. I think something else also sparked people, and that was WikiLeaks, the whistleblower website. The whistleblower website co-founded by Julian Assange, but it's not really about Julian Assange. If he wrote the millions of pages of documents that have been released, the Iraq war logs, the Afghan war logs, the State Department cables, now they're issuing new ones, or releasing new ones. If he wrote them, then it would be about him. But he didn't. No one has disputed the authenticity of these documents. You know, the ones in Iraq, Afghanistan, written by low-level soldiers and officers about what happens on the ground, the daily logs. And they're so important, especially when governments crack down on information. Transparency saves lives. Let me give you an example. Remember in the first issuing of these documents, February 2007, one of the documents described how this Apache helicopter unit was flying overhead in Iraq, and they see these two Iraqis below, and they're putting up their hands to surrender, and the soldiers in the plane don't know what to do in the helicopter. They call back to base, and the lawyer actually instructs them. He says, you can't surrender to a helicopter, so they blow the guys away. And the important point here is these soldiers in the helicopter weren't rogue. They called back and they solicited orders and permission. Just as you gasp, I think people all over this country would gasp. In the tradition of Democracy Now!, even when the internet's down, Sharif becomes one of the top tweeters in the world, and then the thugs broke into the international and US TV studios and they broke up the satellites. I remember seeing Anderson Cooper in his hotel room looking a little like old Democracy Now! On a fuzzy Skype, and the lower third said reporting from an undisclosed location. And there was Sharif in the middle of Tahrir saying who he was, where he was, and saying it was the safest place to be in all of Egypt. And the reports you saw from Democracy Now!, not just the bird's eye view of that amazing image of 1 million people in Tahrir, though that truly was amazing, but you got to meet the people who were fomenting a revolution. And they could have been your grandmothers and your children. They could have been your cousins, your friends, because Sharif was speaking to them, and you were hearing people speak for themselves. And the Arab Spring also inspired by Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Because the people of Wisconsin, whether they voted for him or not, did not expect what would happen when he became governor, that he would try to eviscerate the public unions, destroy their collective bargaining rights, and of course, because so many, the largest protest Wisconsin had ever seen came out and occupied the state capitol, we flew in to cover this grassroots movement. And I remember going into the state capitol building and seeing the biggest guys I had ever seen, the Oshkosh prison guards. And I went over to them and I said, who did you vote for? And they said, Governor Walker, of course. And I said, so what are you doing here? And they said, protesting Governor Walker, of course. And I said, why? And they said, he didn't say he was going to go after our wives, our neighbors. He didn't say he was going to go after our communities. It was a cross-section of Wisconsin society. Outside, 150,000 people marched on the state capitol grounds. It was freezing cold in the snow. I went up to this one older gentleman, white hair, glasses. He was slogging through the snow with a sign that said, IRS auditors against Walker. And for young people who are here today, if you think, decades ago was so much easier because it was so clear-cut. Dr. King is fighting for racial equality. We all know this is black and white. It is very clear, and now it's grayer. The struggles aren't so clear-cut. I think you should think again. 1932 in Wisconsin, AFSCME was born, the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees. The public unions. In Appleton, Wisconsin, also the John Birch Society was born. But think about Dr. King. What he was doing when he was assassinated, April 4th, 1968, killed in Memphis, Tennessee. He had gone to Memphis simply to march with sanitation workers who were trying to organize Local 1707, a local of AFSCME. Yes, there is this continuum. And we move then from this incredible uprising in Wisconsin to the end of August, beginning of September 2011, when thousands formed a ring around the Rose Garden in Washington, right around the White House, to try to get President Obama to stop the Keystone XL tar sands pipeline from Alberta to the Gulf of Mexico. And, 1,200 people were arrested. And some of those people then made their way up to New York in the middle of September 17, 2011. Thousands marched on Wall Street and ended up in this Zuccotti Park and this Liberty Plaza, Liberty Square. That was the beginning of Occupy Wall Street. The media, the corporate media, did not report on the occupation the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. It was amazing. I mean, these folks are in the media metropolis of the world. They are under the noses of these media personalities, and yet they're not getting reported on. And then it got ridiculous the second week. And so the networks had to mention, it was enormous what was taking place. So they started to ridicule them. I remember Emma Burnett started her show on CNN that week. And while she had said this is going to be at a show that brings you the voices of ordinary people, the segment she did on her first show about Occupy Wall Street was called Seriously? And I remember watching one network morning show when they first acknowledged something was happening down the road. And they said, what do these people want? Who are these people? They cannot get it together to have a single message or to choose a spokesperson. If they had a spokesperson, he would be right next to us, right here, we'd be talking to him. But they, every message under the sun with all of their signs, I thought, really? I think any Madison Avenue PR exec would have drooled to be the one credited with perhaps the most successful slogan in U.S. history. Yeah. We are the 99%. Or disagree with it, you understand what it means, and so did people all over this country. The word occupy has occupied the English language and other languages as well. And you think about, the pizza. The amount of pizza that was going into Zuccotti Park, I'm not kidding. Egyptians were calling the local New York pizzerias or ordering online to make sure that the occupiers were fed. Wisconsinites were making orders for pizza, and they were flying into Zuccotti Park, these pizzas, and the occupiers were nothing if not conservationists, using every aspect of these pies. Of course, they ate them, and they called them occupies. They couldn't eat all of them, and so they had these huge buffets, and hundreds of people would line up for food. This was right next to Wall Street. I saw bankers online. They heard there was a free lunch.